Now, if I really had to list my top 3 favorite Star Wars films out of the entire Skywalker saga, they would definitely have to be Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, and The Empire Strikes Back. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, with The Rise of Skywalker just around the corner from its release by Disney, Lucasflm, and JJ, a lot of fans are getting very reminiscent with the past about the past Star Wars movies, the 8 Star Wars films that are a part of the Skywalker saga, ranging from the prequels to the originals and now the sequel trilogy. And I will say that even though my top 3 favorite Star Wars films are Episode 3, 4, and of course, I should say Episode 3, 5, and 6, per se, I actually have to say that Episode 4, there's something about it that's still within my heart that I love so much about it, because A New Hope really is the very beginning of the Skywalker saga back in 1977 by George Lucas. And that's exactly, where it all began, where Luke Skywalker, grew up on Tatooine and pretty much partnered up with Obi-Wan Kenobi and ran into Han Solo. It's a really well-written story by George Lucas, and if it weren't for that film, we wouldn't have Star Wars where it is, from the prequels and everything related to the expanded universe, and even today with the sequel trilogy, even though it does have its flaws. Now, on top of all this, I wanted to go over the original full ending of Star Wars A New Hope, also known as Star Wars Episode 4, or simply The Star Wars before it became A New Hope, way back in the 70s. And what's really intriguing about George Lucas, of course, is that back in 1975, when George Lucas was writing Star Wars A New Hope, he went through various changes to the script of the film, especially for the film's ending between Obi-Wan, Luke, and Darth Vader. It's said that George Lucas and the story of the ending of the film was far different than how it's presented in its current state. In the early drafts of the movie, while both Han, Leia, and Luke are trapped in the trash compactor, originally they were trying actually to reach out to Chewbacca instead of R2-D2 and C-3PO, and the Chewbacca was the one responsible for shutting down the trash compactor, this time on the Death Star. This segment of the film in the early draft of the movie took place far closer to the very end of the film. While all of this happened, Obi-Wan Kenobi was in a different location, looking for Darth Vader. Luke would be able to sense Obi-Wan was in danger after training through the ways of the Force. Once the trash compactor stops, this is where Han, Luke, and Leia escape, where they part their ways on board of the Death Star. Han goes looking for Chewie, where Luke goes looking for Obi-Wan with Leia. Eventually, Luke, who is still in his stormtrooper armor and not in his regular clothing, begins to make his way to Kenobi's location, where Luke is with Leia witnessing the battle taking place between Obi-Wan and, of course, Darth Vader. At the time, in the early drafts of the film, Kenobi was said to use a white lightsaber before George Lucas switched to the idea of the lightsabers being blue. Both Luke and Leia are described to be on the other side, watching the fight take place, where Obi-Wan is said to get killed by Darth Vader. However, in this version of the script, Kenobi's body does not vanish and his body remains on the ground. That is, of course, where Vader sees the princess and shifts his attention to Luke and Leia. Vader orders the stormtroopers to fire at Luke and Leia, where Luke is said to use his lightsaber, which once belonged to Anakin Skywalker, his father, handed down from Kenobi, blocking the fire and deflecting it back at the troopers, while Luke is still wearing the stormtrooper armor. The blast doors begin to close in on Vader, where Luke and Leia rush to Kenobi's aid and bring him on board of the Millennium Falcon and meet back up with Han and Chewie. In this version of the script in early drafts, Kenobi is still hanging on for a moment, telling Luke that the Force will always be with him, where Kenobi would officially die on board of the Falcon and finally vanish this time. Where Luke gets emotional, where this is where they travel to the world of Yavin, and Luke hops in his X-Wing, where Han this time would willingly buddy up with Luke from the very start to destroy the Death Star. Originally, Han Solo was said to be the one who would fire a torpedo into the chamber of the Death Star by flying through the trench sideways, allowing the Falcon to fit like a sideways disc. Where the Death Star explodes into pieces, transitioning to the ceremony, where the romance between Han and Leia this time in the early drafts of the film picked up right away at the very last shot of the movie, where a kiss was exchanged in front of Luke, Chewbacca, and the droids, before the changes were made by George Lucas. So let's go over a couple of parts about this. Now, I don't know about you guys, but yes, even though, like I said, my top 3 favorite movies are, of course, episodes 5, 6, and 3, I gotta say, Episode 4, A New Hope, there's something about it that is still so special about it within my heart because, like I say, that's exactly where it all started. It's a very good adventure film. It really is. You know, you have the moment where Luke is all by himself, he meets up with Kenobi, then Luke and Kenobi meet up with Han, and then they meet up with Leia. I mean, it's an excellent progressive story of these characters meeting each other, something that, in my opinion, to be quite honest, you know, the sequel trilogy fails to do. I'm still surprised that we are now this late into the sequel trilogy with The Rise of Skywalker, literally being the only film where Poe, Finn, and Rey are going to team up, just like Luke, Han, and Leia did in Star Wars A New Hope, Empire, and of course Return of the Jedi. Well, even though in Empire, for a majority, they were all split apart, but Return of the Jedi, they were still together, so that's at least 2 main movies in the originals. So, with that being said, the thing that I think I love so much about this most in the early drafts of Star Wars A New Hope is that Obi-Wan Kenobi actually was able to survive until he was brought back on board of the Falcon with both Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewbacca. Now, what's great about this is that this actually allowed a moment between both Luke and Kenobi before Kenobi died, where Kenobi exchanges a line of dialogue that the Force will always be with you, etc., etc. Then on board of the Falcon, he vanishes. So the thing that really surprises me is that this was completely changed in the current version where, you know, Darth Vader strikes down Kenobi and he vanishes on the spot. In the early drafts, Kenobi actually just laid there. His body was still there. And Darth Vader was going past the blast doors, and the blast doors close in on Vader and the troopers as, you know, Luke and Leia are actually there. Luke is deflecting the blaster fire by use of Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber. And while Luke is doing this, he's still in the Stormtrooper armor. He never went into his normal clothing. Now, the Death Star sequence in Star Wars A New Hope, as it is right now, it's still classic. And to me, honestly, I think that the movie that we have currently is still better than what we have in the early drafts and the other takes on different versions of the script by George Lucas. Again, George went through many different changes of Star Wars A New Hope. There was even a time, in case you guys did not know, that Luke Skywalker was not even a male. He was actually a female and had an actual different name. And there was also a time where Luke Skywalker was also called Luke Starkiller before they changed it to Skywalker. And it's a very interesting way of how all these movies really evolve. You know, George Lucas, all the different scripts that were involved with Star Wars A New Hope, and how a lot of the editing really changed everything forever, right? So the other piece that I do want to go over that really stands out to me as well, involving Star Wars A New Hope's original ending from the early drafts, is that there was a moment in which when they're inside of the trash compactor, it wasn't R2-D2/C3PO that caused the trash compactor to shut down, it was Chewbacca this time. So you can see, you know, the attention of detail here that George had of switching things around and kind of altering things and keeping things similar at the same exact time to really kind of just carry on over some of his original ideas into the finalized version of the movie. And that's great, by the way. That's what I like about George, too, is that when you look at Star Wars A New Hope, it's an authentic Star Wars movie. It's honestly the most classic Star Wars film, and that's what it is at the end of the day. I mean, it's really what started it all. It was a smash success back in the 70s. A lot of fans, you know, weren't even quite sure. And even Mark Hamill said this at the time. A lot of fans, even Mark Hamill, wasn't sure on whether or not it was a comedy sci-fi movie or if it was like a dramatic science fiction movie, but really it was just a space opera. And that's exactly what Star Wars is. It's a space opera. As George stated, it's not all about the ships and the wars and stuff like that. It's about family. And that's where it all started in Star Wars A New Hope. You know, the element of family is right there from the very start between Luke, his aunt and uncle, Beru and Owen Lars, getting killed by the Empire. That's where he actually has no purpose to live on Tatooine anymore and moves on from that past life of his and sides up with Obi-Wan Kenobi and begins to learn more about his father. And that's the very interesting thing about it, is that even A New Hope, though it doesn't have reveals about his family, Luke's father and how he was a Jedi is what exactly inspired Luke to go on this amazing journey. So at the heart of it all, you know, family is still a strong point in A New Hope. Anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
nights alone.